Hello, this is part of the Controlled Environment Plant Production Engineering / Technology Education modules that were developed and presented by The Ohio State University, Rutgers University, and the University of Arizona, with support from the USDA NIFA program.
When you're running a business, and a lot of times in greenhouses, what I see people doing is they just love growing the plants and they're out there doing the physical labor. And there is an advantage of that because you want to be familiar with the production and you want to be able to relate to the employees in your business. But as a manager, you really need to manage. That's your main function. Every business is unique and you have a unique set of resources, facilities, skills of your people, the location that you want to use, and look at what we call your core competencies of your business and yourself so that you can look at your comparative advantage. What can you do better, faster, quicker than the competition? What do you have to offer people? Because of this competitive market that's no longer producer-driven but this consumer-driven, we have to do what we call strategic planning. So this is what I'm focusing on now, is the first part of your strategic plan, which we call a SWOT analysis, looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We're also going to talk a little bit about goals and core competencies and things like that. So you want to look at the big picture. You look at your core competencies, and these lead to your comparative advantage. And you want to identify strengths that you have that you can build upon. And you also want to look at your weaknesses and see if you can overcome those or at least be aware of them. I always say in terms of the cost accounting, which I've done a lot, is a lot of growers don't want to do the cost accounting because I don't think they want to find out that their favorite crop maybe isn't profitable. And sometimes it's okay to have some things that aren't as profitable if there's other reasons in your business, like that's a key product that your customers want. If you're not profitable overall, obviously you're not going to stay in business for the long term, but you do want to look at everything in detail and be aware of what's happening. And some of you mentioned that. You've got so many things going on, you don't really know that. So that's what we're hoping to find time to focus on, and wintertime is the time we can do that because we're not that busy in the greenhouse. So we want to look at your strengths, you want to build on those, and you want to look at the external forces in the industry and in economy and look at how that's going to impact your business. And then you want to anticipate good trends and take advantage of them, and you want to align your activities in your firm to the current market conditions. So business description, as I said before, this is probably one of the easier things for you to do is describe your greenhouse, what products you're producing, who are your customers, describe when it started, give a little bit of history. That's important. All of us, have that history, and that builds pride, and it is a big accomplishment to have a successful business. Most businesses fail, so the fact that you're still here says a lot for you. So to describe, just in basic terms, the size, the location, the buildings, the facilities, who's the owner, who are the other key players, what are your financial capabilities, what are your strengths that you want to build upon, weaknesses that you want to correct or overcome, and then you look at the future, your timetables, your plans, what kind of resources do you need, people and technical gaps that you need to be filled. Okay, what will you produce and why? Again, this is something a lot of people in agriculture are fairly focused on. So I'm giving you an example here. So this is sort of a standard floriculture greenhouse in New Jersey. And they say I'm going to grow bedding plants, poinsettias, hanging baskets, perennials, and garden mums, and so that I can have crops all year round. Again, we're going to talk a little bit later about variable cost and overhead cost, but one of the key things is greenhouses often don't operate year round. The more crops that you can actually successfully grow and market, the more you can spread that overhead cost over more products, because that overhead cost is fairly substantial compared to any other agricultural business. So we're finding more and more greenhouses are looking for year-round production. In fact, farms in general are looking for year-round production. We find people that own greenhouses in the past to grow flowers or adding Christmas trees and pumpkins and things to stretch that season, maybe even outdoor vegetables in the summer. They also plan to produce my own plugs and rooted cuttings in the winter so that I can ensure top quality for my customers, so producing your own starter plants. And then they'll sell the extra plugs and the rooted cuttings to other producers. And I'll produce perennials for spring sales to garden centers. I'll grow my own poinsettia stock plants and finish poinsettias to florist markets. And I'll produce garden mums outdoors for fall sales. So you see this is a fairly upscale producer, but they're producing for a fairly upscale garden center market. So the Garden State Greenhouse business description, again, it's a wholesale floriculture business specializing in selling unique, high-quality plants to retail garden centers. It sounds like it's part of their mission statement. The production facility is 25,000 square feet, and it's a glass greenhouse. And she plans to sell bedding plants, poinsettias, hanging baskets, perennials, and garden mums. And we talked about producing your own cuttings, garden mums outdoors, and she has a 5-acre tract of land with a barn that's not currently in use. Okay, so that's where we are now. Then we start thinking about the future. We also want to give a history of when and how the farm started, what is unique about its products, who's the owner and the key personnel, what are the financial capabilities and special business relationships, what are the strengths that I'm going to build on, the weaknesses I want to correct, and then we mentioned all the timelines and technical gaps for the future. So for Garden State Greenhouse, it's a new business just starting up. It was purchased from Bill Smith, who wanted to retire, and he sold it to Mary Wilson, who's the current owner. The greenhouse itself is 30 years old, a glass greenhouse. It specializes in bedding plants and sells to local retail garden centers. Mary's husband, John, has an off-farm job to keep the family going while the farm gets started. I find this is key. I really admire people that can just start up without having that. But to start a new business, it's kind of nice if you've got a spouse or some other source of income or another job that can give you benefits and some income until you get up and going. Because any farm business, you're generally planting the product or growing animals. You have to wait a while until you collect the income from that. So you've got a cash flow deficit there in the beginning. So her husband's off-farm job is going to be very helpful. And he's also helping with the business plans. They have 2 children they're going to put to work in the business as well. A 14-year-old daughter, Linda, and Dan, a 15-year-old son. And who are the customers? Because of the growth of the mass market, she plans to sell high-quality products that are unique and different from things that you can get at the mass market. She plans to sell plants to retail garden centers whose customers are serious gardeners who are looking for high quality and service and uniqueness. The location, it's located in southern New Jersey, just outside of Cape May on a major road, and the area consists of upscale Victorian homes. Her beds of annuals and hanging baskets are very prized, so she should have a market there. It has a 25,000 square foot greenhouse, which you already mentioned, and a 2,000 square foot head house and loading dock. And there's a small barn that could be used for storage or possibly retailing down the road. Then we need to talk about ownership structure. There's sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, limited liability partnership, and or limited liability corporation. That's becoming very popular with farmers, and cooperative, and there's a few others. And you can also be a subchapter S corporation or just a regular C corporation. So those are things you might want to work out with your accountant and other people in your business, what's most useful for you. Then you need to explain who holds the title of the farm. This is important, defining who owns that title, who has the authority to make decisions, and what proportion of the farm does each person own, and what are the contributions and responsibilities of each owner, and how long has this business structure been around. You can also change the business structure if it's not suiting you. How are your profits shared, and what will happen if the business is terminated? Since Mary is starting this business and most of the money that started it came from her, they sort of have an agreement that if there is a divorce, that she keeps that percentage of the business that she brought into the finances for. It's a partnership between Mary and John as the owners, and Mary's the full-time manager, and it's been registered with the state of New Jersey. And Mary used inherited assets, so she was able to provide 75% of the startup capital. John put in 25%, so all aspects of the business, that are going to divide it that way. Okay, business goals. You need to describe what you want from your business, and they should be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, and have a specific time period. And they answer the questions, why are you in business and what do you want to accomplish in your life and in the business? They reflect your value, interest, resources, and capabilities. They should provide a basis for your decision making or focal point for everyone involved. They establish priorities for allocating scarce resources, and they provide a means for measuring progress. So again, I said that they're SMART, so here's defined it, the SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And you want to use action words to describe each one, and you want to share these goals with other people involved in the business. So some examples of SMART goals: increase sales by 50% over the next 5 years. We see that there's a way of measuring it. It's 50% and within 5 years, so there's a time limit on that. And at the end of 5 years, you can see if you met that goal or not, and then you can sort of recap and figure out why or why not, and was that a realistic goal? Do we want to change it? How can we, adjust for the future? Reduce labor costs by 20% over the next 5 years. Maintain the same level of sales, but look for ways to reduce costs by 5% next year through inventory management and mechanization. Increase production by 25% within 2 years. Start a new crop that'll add $2,000 annually to sales within the next 5 years. Reduce debt by $2,000 per year. Or be in a position to transfer full ownership to children from the current owners within the next 10 years. So you see those are all measurable, specific, attainable, and time-bound. Again, the customer is key in this economy, so strategic planning starts and ends with the profitable satisfaction of the customer's needs.
We'd like to acknowledge the funding that was received for this effort by the USDA NIFA program.